Hello, this is Anne, and today I'll be talking about Problem I from the 2023 NACLO Invitational Round. This puzzle is called Show That One for the People, and it is sort of a historical linguistics puzzle as we are given two languages, Umbrian and its close relative Latin, and we have to see what changes between the two. So this problem asks us to fill in 6 Umbrian words given their Latin equivalent. And so I would start by sort of working backwards from the Latin to the Umbrian and basically just going down the table to see the changes. So first in sestu in Umbrian, we have sisto in Latin. So we can see that the O from the Latin goes to a U, and then the I in the Latin becomes an E. But then the S and the T stay the same. And then in the second one, Petruna it becomes Petronia. And so here we can see that there is like the Petrunia here. And obviously here we can also see that the O becomes a U from the Latin to the Umbrian. But then the per is like the pro. So the pro at the start basically becomes an ending per. And then sanctum, it becomes sata. So the AM becomes an A, and the NC becomes an H. Then tref and trees, we have that the S becomes an F, and also the I becomes an E, but we already have that as the second one. And then rufra and rubra, the B becomes an F. And catlu and catalum, it's the UM goes to a U. The K is from a C, and the UL becomes just one L. And then Iveca and Ivunicum, we have that the AM becomes an A, which we already have as the fourth. And the IU becomes just an I, and the EN becomes an E. Then Uveth and Ovis, we already have that the S becomes an F here, and we have that the O becomes an U, like at the very top. So basically that just reaffirms like the pattern that we saw. And then Uchter and Octer, we also have that the O becomes an U, and we have the C becomes H, and AU just becomes a U. And then Canetu and Canito, we already have that the O and the U's, we have the E and the I, and we also have the C and the K. So that also like just reaffirms what we already saw. And then Ustentu and Ostento, we have the U's become O's, and the EN becomes an E. And we also have Estu and Istum, which we just get that the E becomes I, and then the U becomes UM, or like the other way around too. And then Puluper and Propopulo, it's the same thing as the Petrunaper and Propetronia. So that's pretty much the same. And we also have that the UL in the Populo becomes an L in the Pupuloper. And then Furtu and Furto is just the O and the U's. So then we can use the list that we already have to fill out the Umbrian in the rest of the table. So here we have ITO, and then the I becomes an E, the T stays the same, and we end with a U. So that's etu instead of ito. And then frictum, well, the F stays the same and the R also stays the same, but the I becomes an E, and then the C becomes an H, and then the UM just becomes, and then there's a T, and the UM just becomes U, so it's fret2. And then the pro-re is similar to like the pro-populo and the pro-petronia, so that's just going to become RE, and then we have the per at the end, per. And then taros, the T stays the same, and then we have a U instead of the AU. We have the R is still the same, and then here the O becomes a U, and then the S becomes an F. So it's two. And then forum, the F stays the same, the O becomes a U, the R stays the same, and then the UM just becomes a U. And finally, inito, the I's become E's, while the N stays the same, and then it's T, and then the O becomes a U, so it's initu. And we're done. So this was a pretty short puzzle, but it's like sort of historical linguistics, even though the languages aren't like descended from each other. It's more of they're really similar to each other, and we have to see the changes between that. But I think like working from the Umbrian to the Latin might be difficult, because then you'll have like F becomes a S and also a B, while working backwards from Latin to Umbrian. Like, it's not backwards, but since it's like left and right, it sort of appears that way. And that makes it easier to like see from the Latin back to the Umbrian. That's it. Bye!